Hi, Shannon here with Mental Health Louisville, and today we have Jennifer Kramer with us, and she's going to answer one of our questions. Of course, these are questions that are asked by you guys. We take them in and get them answered by a mental health or wellness professional in the field. And today we have a really great question, but before we get to the question, let me introduce you guys to Jennifer. She's an artist, a licensed art therapist, and an online coach serving female survivors of narcissistic abuse. She's the founder of Redefined Process, and this is an approach that uses a combination of spontaneous art making and responsive writing. And she developed this process while she was going through her own recovery with experience with narcissistic abuse. And she discovered that the key to her growth and with a lot of her clients was being able to reconnect and redefine their own identities. So this redefined process works because it really engages your body, it engages your mind in such a way that all these subconscious emotions that are living inside of us that are kind of limiting our beliefs and our desires are brought to the surface, quite literally through like the art and writing that is done. And that just makes everything a little bit more visible and a little bit more easy to navigate in that therapeutic process. And if you want to learn more about Jennifer, of course, you can reach out to her and learn about her services. The easiest way, one, you can just Google her name, Jennifer Kramer, and that's Kramer with a K, or she has a link tree that's Jennifer A. Kramer. But yeah, we're so glad to have you here with us, Jennifer. Today, our question that came in, and we thought you would be, of course, perfect to answer it, would be, this individual said, "Help, I'm stuck. How do I get over my narcissistic partner?"
Yes, this is a very good question. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. This is a really common concern too, whether it's being stuck on your particular ex and not being able to get them out of your mind, or just feeling kind of stuck in general in life. I mean, that word stuck is something I hear a lot from my clients, where you just feel like you want to move forward, but you can't, and you're not sure like how to do that. Like, I want to move forward, I should be able to, right? And you just don't know what's keeping you stuck. So first, I'm going to share my short answer, which is kind of an unpopular opinion, and then I'll expand on that more. So my short answer is the key, like my number one tip always to get unstuck and move on after narcissistic abuse, is to stop reading about and learning about narcissism. So I'll explain that a little though. So first, I think, initially, whether it's when you're still in the relationship and trying to learn about what the heck is happening to you and trying to figure out, if you need to leave, if you need to get out, and then initially after the relationship as well, I call this stage the information gathering stage or phase, and it's super important. So initially, I went through this phase too. Like, I was just obsessively reading about narcissism. I remember the day, I think it was after my separation, where I went to my therapist and I said, I finally figured out like what personality disorder he has, like I finally named it. And there's so much freedom in being able to name it, first of all, as abuse, and then second, as narcissistic abuse, because it just, we have so many big aha moments when we can read an article about it, or we can even, memes on Instagram, or, when we read other people's experience with it. There's so much clarity and so much comfort in knowing like, okay, this is what it is, I can name it. But the difficulty is, so when we get to this point where we're out of the relationship, we are trying to move on with our lives, and we still feel stuck, often we're still in this cycle of focusing on the narcissist. So what it does when we're still reading about it and learning about it, and I think this can go with any type of trauma, if we're obsessed, which is gathering information about the trauma, about narcissistic characteristics, then that really keeps our brain focused on the abuser. And so, I always say to my clients and the women in my free Facebook community that our brains like patterns. I'm constantly saying that. And so, as Shane, as a therapist, this as well, like our brains like patterns, whether they're helpful or not. Yep. And so, yeah, when you're in the narcissistic relationship, there are certain behaviors that sort of or protective mechanisms, like you're in this survival mode, and the whole walking on eggshells and just trying to people please and do whatever the narcissist kind of wants you to do, even though we know you can never really meet their expectations, they're never happy, to a certain extent, trying to please them and just engaging in this cycle of behaviors where it's all about them, that helps you. Because if you just said like, F you, I'm done with this, I'm not going to do what you say anymore, then that's going to cause a huge blow up, or that might be the end of the relationship. And so it kind of staying in this cycle where you're 100% focused on them and not on you, that helps you survive. But when we're out of the relationship, that doesn't serve us, of course, because we want to move on with our lives and focus on ourselves. So to get to my actual answer here, what you need to do is shift focus from the narcissist, from learning about narcissism or from thinking about that person, and shift that focus to yourself. So we need to learn about ourselves, because one of the hugest, like long-lasting effects of narcissistic abuse is that we are disconnected from our very sense of self. Like our identity just slowly eroded away. It was really gradual during the abusive relationship. And often we don't even notice that until even years later. Like, when we have these aha moments about I'm stuck and, why am I stuck? It's because we don't know who we are. We don't know, what we like to do. We don't know what our preferences are, because we've sort of squashed those and stifled those for so long. And especially if you've also experienced childhood trauma, which a lot of us who end up in abusive relationships as adults, we've also had childhood trauma. So if you've had a lot of childhood abuse or neglect, then even more so, like you may not have ever had an experience of figuring out really who you are and what your preferences and likes and dislikes are. So I think we need to move forward and focus on ourselves and our identity. And I'll give a couple of just practical examples of how to do that. So one would be just to choose, and these might sound like simple things, but it's these tiny steps that add up to bigger progress after the abuse. So one would just be to choose like some small thing that you want to explore more, some activity. Like it could be as simple as, oh, I think I like to take walks. I've maybe only done that a handful of times over the past year, but I kind of enjoyed that. So make a small goal of, 3 times this week, I'm going to take a 20-minute walk, or every day I'm going to take a 10-minute walk. You can walk 5 minutes one way and five minutes home, and try that every day or a few days a week and see how that feels. And then maybe if you enjoy that, then take it a step further. And, I'm kind of bored in my neighborhood. Why don't I choose a park and go walk in a park? Then maybe if you enjoy that could turn into, getting curious about some hiking trails you see in the park. Maybe you're going to go hiking. Then eventually, if you enjoy that could lead to, meeting up with a hiking group and forming some new relationships. And then, over a period of time of exploring that and trusting your inner voice, your intuition, not what anybody else says, but just trusting kind of what you feel led to, then it can grow into like an interest and something new in your life, even new relationships and friendships. So that's one simple example. And another is that, part of what we lose in abuse is we can lose sort of our playful kind of spirit. I think it's important as adults for all of us, even as adults, for all of us to just play and get in touch with that sort of spontaneous, kind of intuitive side of ourselves. And so for me, with the art making process, that's where I experienced that sense of play. And in my online coaching program, and even with my in-person art therapy clients, we often start with scribble drawing. And it's literally just, you can use crayons, crayons and white copy paper that you can find in the school supply aisle of your grocery store. It doesn't have to be any complicated art materials, but just to draw a line or a few marks or a shape and color it in, just whatever feels right. Like, again, trusting your intuition, your inner voice, just what you feel like. If we have a lot of anger in our bodies, that might come out in a lot of harsh lines. We might even rip the paper. If we're feeling sad and depressed, it might just be some slow kind of soothing coloring. But that's a way to get in touch with sort of our playful part of ourselves, and also to express our emotions. So So yeah, those are just a couple of practical examples, but we just need to take some small steps, whatever they are, set a goal of what you're going to do, and just take those little steps toward exploring something that you might like, something that connects with who you are.
Yeah, I think it's so great. I mean, and of course, you know more about your services than I do, but it seems like you offer a handful of different things, whether it's kind of like community coaching programs, therapeutic stuff with art therapy, of knowing that like that connection and support is really important during this time, because it's not going to be like a comfortable, easy transition of like, this was a huge major survival technique that like really helped you survive, like physically, emotionally, whatever it may be in that relationship. So like shifting the focus inwards is going to be very different, and usually can be very helpful to have a community around or have a professional to do that process with you.
Yes, exactly. And often after narcissistic abuse, it's like we don't trust anyone who hasn't experienced that same type of abuse, because, you know, especially if there wasn't physical abuse involved, like, you know, emotional abuse is so hard to explain to people. And I hear from so many women that like their friends and family like are really minimizing what they went through and like, oh, just get over it. And that's so hurtful that we get closed off and don't want to talk to anybody about it. So yeah, especially others who understand what you've gone through. And so I understand that, and the women in my online community understand that as well. Yeah, that community is super important.
Yeah. And do you want to kind of plug any of your services or anything in regards to like how, you know, other than of course, like Googling you and going to your link tree and seeing everything on there, just anything that you have out there that would be helpful? I know you have, I believe, an Instagram presence and just different things.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and links to those accounts are also on that link tree. On that site, the Linktree site, there's also a link to my free Facebook group, which is called Women Overcoming Narcissistic Abuse. I've got over 500 women in there now. It's a really supportive community, and I post regularly throughout the week with just prompts to you know, check in with your feelings, or I have a Mandala Monday, you know, that I always post. Mandala is a circle design that's very calming and soothing, and I encourage the women in my community to stop and reflect at the beginning of the week of how they're feeling, and just to do a mandala design. And then there's also a link on my link tree that goes to a page that explains about my online group coaching program. And I've recently made some updates and changes to it, and I'm super excited about that. I've had a couple women join just in the past couple weeks. It's now a monthly membership program, so it's pay as you go and work at your own pace. So I find that really kind of fits a lot of people's lifestyles right now. You don't have to show up at a certain time. We do have weekly coaching calls where you can interact and ask questions, but that's always recorded, so you can go back and view that later if you can't attend at that time. But yeah, there's a page to read more about that. There's a little video I recorded where you can hear more about it. And then I'm also have openings for individual art therapy if you're needing that more clinical kind of therapy piece. And the more one-on-one support I'm doing in person and telehealth. And so I guess you can reach out to me on social media, but you could also email me, especially if you're interested in the art therapy. So that's jennifer@jenniferacramer.com. And or, you know, through Facebook, through the Facebook group, or any other way, you know, it's fine to get a hold of me to ask about the art therapy.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us and for this wonderful insight in answering this question. And just a reminder to everyone listening, if you have a question for us, just go ahead and DM us and we will find someone to answer it for you. But until next time, bye.